In an unexpected and controversial moment that has sparked nationwide discussion, former President Donald Trump addressed a group of Navy sailors at a routine event, attempting to rally support by targeting his usual political adversaries. However, instead of the passionate response he anticipated, Trump's remarks were met with an eerie silence from the audience, leaving many wondering if the attempt to provoke political division had backfired. The scene unfolded at a Navy base where Trump was scheduled to speak to the sailors. The former president, known for his penchant for fiery, often divisive rhetoric, took to the stage with the intention of reigniting old political flames. As he began his speech, he reflected on his tenure in office, drawing attention to what he described as the strength and respect the military had under his leadership. "You know, I was just thinking about how much better things were when I was in charge," Trump said, addressing the sailors. "Remember how we used to have respect for our leaders?" As he continued, the tone was unmistakably nostalgic for his time in office, but it quickly shifted into more partisan territory. "Unlike some people who left us with a mess," he remarked, "I always put America first. And we had the best military, didn't we?" Trump's words, though familiar, quickly took on a sharper political edge. He named no names directly, but it was clear who he was referring to when he said, "Remember how bad the evacuation was in Afghanistan? What a disaster." The sailors were clearly aware of the direction the speech was taking, but they likely didn't expect what came next. The former president, sensing the opportunity to draw the crowd into a heated political moment, urged them to show their discontent, saying, "Come on, folks, you can do better than that. Let's hear it for the guy who left us stranded in Afghanistan." At this moment, Trump was clearly expecting a wave of boos or some form of vocal disapproval from the sailors. However, the reaction he received was anything but what he had hoped for. Instead of jeers or boos, the crowd was met with an uncomfortable, almost awkward silence. For what seemed like an eternity, there was nothing. No applause, no shouts, not even a single voice joining in with Trump's attempt to rile them up. The former president's face momentarily flickered with a hint of confusion as he scanned the crowd, seemingly waiting for some sign of approval or engagement. But there was only silence. The silence was so thick that it almost became the loudest sound in the room. Some sailors exchanged confused glances, while others simply looked away. The lack of a response wasn't lost on Trump, who quickly tried to recover, shifting his rhetoric to a more neutral tone. "Well, I guess not everyone appreciates a good joke," he said, trying to laugh off the moment. "Anyway, let's move on." But the damage had already been done. The moment had passed. And it became painfully obvious that his attempt to politicize the occasion was not going to play out as expected. Among the sailors who attended the event, the attempt to provoke a political response was met with mixed emotions. Sailor 1, a mid-ranking officer, was one of those who experienced the event firsthand. Reflecting on the atmosphere during Trump's speech, he described how things started out innocuously but quickly shifted into something uncomfortable. "We knew it was going to be a political speech, but I don't think any of us expected it to go the way it did," Sailor 1 said. He started off talking about how great things were when he was president, about how the military was better under his leadership. "And we could tell he was kind of setting us up for something," Sailor 1 continued, explaining that Trump's remarks about former President Obama were what caused the discomfort to set in. He started talking about Obama and said, "Remember how bad the evacuation was in Afghanistan? What a disaster." It was clear he was trying to get us to react, but none of us really knew how to respond. We were just there to do our jobs, not to get caught up in a political moment. The sailor reflected on how, instead of engaging with Trump's call for a reaction, the sailors collectively chose silence. "We weren't going to play into it," Sailor 1 said. "We're here to serve, not to be pawns in a political stunt." Sailor 2, who was more outspoken, shared similar thoughts. He called Trump's attempt to provoke the crowd disrespectful and out of place. "The Navy is about professionalism. When you're in uniform, you're not supposed to be part of that kind of game," Sailor 2 remarked. "I just felt like it was inappropriate. We were there to hear about military issues, not to be asked to participate in partisan politics. I think it was clear that we weren't going to give him what he wanted." Reflecting on the overall mood in the room, Sailor 2 emphasized that there was a collective decision to remain silent, rather than joining in the spectacle that Trump had hoped to create. It was like a moment of unity in the face of division, Sailor 2 explained. None of us wanted to be part of that. We didn't need to shout or cheer, just staying silent was a statement in itself. From the perspective of a senior officer who observed the event closely, the situation was nothing short of troubling. The military has a long-standing tradition of respecting civilian leadership, regardless of political affiliation. But what Trump did was try to turn that respect into something divisive, the senior officer explained. You could see that the room was uncomfortable. We are here to do our jobs, not to be part of a political game. It wasn't just awkward, it was inappropriate. The senior officer went on to explain that the lack of response from the sailors was a clear sign of disapproval. It wasn't just silence from a few people, it was from everyone, he said. It was a collective decision not to engage, and I think it sent a powerful message. The military has always been about unity, and that moment was a reminder of how easily that unity can be undermined when politics are injected into the mix. As the event continued, the tension in the room was palpable. Despite Trump's efforts to regain control of the situation, the energy had shifted. Sailors who had initially shown polite applause began to withdraw into themselves, and the event quickly moved to a close, with the discomfort still lingering in the air. The message from the sailors, though unspoken, was clear. They were not going to be drawn into a partisan spectacle, especially in a setting that should have been about professionalism and unity. In the aftermath, political commentators have weighed in on the significance of the moment. Some argue that Trump's attempt to provoke a reaction was an unfortunate attempt to politicize the military, while others see it as a reflection of the deepening political divide in the country. Whatever the case may be, the awkward silence that followed Trump's remarks serves as a reminder that there are moments when the military and those who serve will choose professionalism and unity over political gamesmanship. As the story continues to unfold, one thing remains clear. For many sailors, the attempt to use the occasion for partisan purposes was met with the only response that could truly convey their feelings, an uncomfortable yet powerful silence.